The players have cleaned out their lockers. Now we get to hear what head coach Andre Tourney and Bill Armstrong have to say at the end of the season. We'll tell you all about it on today's Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we are the dynamic duo that brings you the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast each and every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We love talking about the UHC, and so do head coach Andre Tourney, Bill Armstrong, Chris Armstrong. All three had a media availability today, and Robyn, looking back, I didn't expect any earth-shattering news coming out of this. We got a couple updates and a couple of interesting answers, but nothing earth-shaking. Everybody kind of just smiling and nodding and saying, yes, we were very happy with the way this year went. So, I mean, no thunderbolts from the blue in this one, and quite frankly, it was about what I expected.
Yeah, it goes a lot to say that it's really typical of it is very hockey to kind of just get the very generic, answers that not everyone would be looking for, but they'll just give it to you anyways, right? It's like, hey, how long have we been covering hockey for? Do we understand these cliche answers, or just very simple, very non-direct, or nothing earth-shattering? Very few coaches or GMs will just go out and say, well, especially when it's in like a more scripted, not really scripted per se, but preset setting. If it's like an impromptu, then sometimes the coach might go a little off the rails. But when it's very set up like this, it's what you expect.
Yeah, I will say the questions weren't challenging for the most part either. So there was no real pushing of buttons or trying to get any real digs into what the thought processes are heading into the off season, which, I kind of find that interesting, but we did get an update on Connor Ingram. So, which is actually that there isn't really an update on Connor Ingram. One of the interesting things about heading into the NHL's player assistance program is that the team no longer has contact with the player. So when the player enters the program, and Ingram entered it before when he was in Nashville, this year after the death of his mom, he was struggling and just, voluntarily entered, and it is voluntary, entered the program and left the team at that point. So Robyn, it was telling, Bill Armstrong said, I don't have any updates. I know it's a good, strong program. We're pleased that he's there because it's a great program. But to me, and this is, I have no knowledge of this. I have talked to no one, but this is me reading between the lines. I think Ingram's going to be out for a while. And that may open things up next year for goaltending. It may. And I have no way of knowing that. I kind of hope I'm wrong, to be honest with you, because Ingram has one more year left on his deal, but it could open up a chance for competition for the backup to Karel Vejmelka, who now, how about it? That is really an even more important signing. Not that he didn't deserve the contract extension, not that he didn't earn the number one position this year, but
can you imagine where this team would be if Vejmelka was not re-signed, right? If he was not signed, and now Utah is now in a rush to try to get him to get re-signed, figuring out, okay, we need a goalie next year. We don't know where Ingram is going to be. We don't know because as you said, we don't have contact with them because that's just the nature of the player assistance program. But even though, like you said, there is a chance that he could be out for a while, I have a little bit of confidence he'll come back. I mean, it's a difficult situation, Tom, because I feel like a lot of people and anyone can really understand, anyone who's dealing with grief and a lot of different things can know that everyone has their own pace. We don't know what the pace is for Connor Ingram. I mean, we do understand there is a history with him with mental health, but it's, everything is for him to decide when he's ready to come back, when he feels like he can. I have the confidence he will, but again, we'll have to see exactly at what point that's going to be.
And down the stretch, they really didn't display confidence in either goaltender that they had up from Tucson. So it makes you wonder if they might not be looking at the open market in the future here. I don't know. I mean, unless something changes radically over the summer, or they decide, well, maybe we'll give Stauber or Villalta a shot, but maybe they're going to see what's out there come free agency as far as trying to pick a backup goaltender, whether through, it could be a trade as well. And they have cap space, so who knows? But I can't imagine them bringing anybody who's going to threaten Veg at the number one, unless just somebody really good is a victim of a numbers game and is looking for a home at the right time.
No, at this point, we very will see if Utah does want to add somebody in goaltending. They're adding someone who is at this point would be a quote true backup, someone who's expendable, someone who can easily who can work on the back end, but really at the end of the day, Veggie is going to get the most. It's going to get the significant amount of the reps going in the next year, and someone that they can really just kind of it's like, let's say if it's like a 1-year deal or whatever, Ingram's ready to come back and can kind of take the number 2 spot when he's ready. I mean, that's a whole nother issue, but there's a lot of different ways you can look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just, one piece of the puzzle, although Andre Tourigny did touch on it today in his, I guess we'll call it a post-mortem of the season, looking back. Obviously very pleased with the way not only the Veg played, but, kind of, again, this is like 2 years ago, kind of coming back to that version of himself as opposed to last year where Ingram kind of took over. It's nice to see. And of course, again, pressure of a contract year, right? Some guys perform, some guys don't. Sometimes you get yourself the new contract, sometimes you don't. So I was pleased to see that. But now, Robyn, I might be a little justified in being slightly nervous to see if there's a drop-off next year, right? I mean, I'm just curious. I want to see how things start out here. So hopefully good. But
I mean, yeah, there is some hope. But there also is I think a justifiable amount of nervousness, especially seeing how the Waves go. I will add, and again, it could be a level of controversy, but like it's something to think about. I remember back before the year where Veggie had a down year, there was talk about Veggie being on a Czech language podcast, the kind of talking trash, not really talking trash, but having sounding like he was upset of what was going on with the situation in the Arizona Coyotes and their time at Mullet Arena. I mean, let's be real. I mean,
understandable,
right? I mean, a lot of players, they don't want to play in a small arena like that. It was a cool place to be, and it was a really unique experience for the fans, and the ice was great, but not an NHL arena. And so, but that's a whole different issue. But the point I was making was, it seemed Veggie was upset. Maybe that kind of bled into his game. I don't want to put any speculation on there, but if you want to, you can say, okay, maybe that's the reason. He's in a better place now. He's happy in Utah, and he's going to play better in these next few years.
Yes, absolutely. A couple of points. Both Andre Tourigny and Chris Armstrong mentioned the fan support. They lauded the crowd. Chris Armstrong also talked about things like the ticket sales and the corporate support and the merchandise sales, which we don't really need to get into here. But just showing the fan base this year, the growth they went through. I don't want to say I thought it was an insulting question, but basically there was a question asked at some point for Andre Tourigny about how he thought the fan base got smarter this year. And I'm not saying there aren't newbies coming to the sport because they're attracted by the glow of the NHL lights.
Right.
But I think that kind of discredits the people who are the longtime hockey fans, like a lot of folks who jumped on board with us right away and have become our everydayers. I was actually a little, hey, give more credit to this market as a hockey market.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting that you do point that out, Tom, because we did a little we had our hockey 101 series right last summer. But from what I realized is most of the people that were tuning into our show, and what we just realized in general, is most Utah hockey fans were already hockey fans. I mean, they already know about the sport. They already understood the game. They are diehard hockey fans, and they just now have a home team to cheer for. So, I mean, they tuned us. They go out, and they're season ticket holders for the UHC. And it made sense. So yeah, I mean, I know what you mean when you're saying that, right? And it's just like thinking like, oh, everyone's a new hockey fan because it's the first time the NHL is here, but hockey's been around in Salt Lake and just in Utah in general for a long time.
Decades. It didn't just show up last year. So, Robyn, I have a couple more things I want to talk about with Andre Tourney, Bill, and Chris Armstrong. So let's get to that. But also, we're going to broach the topic: what makes a Stanley Cup champion? And I think Robyn and I, if we were both GMs, we'd probably build a little bit differently. But we're going to get into that. We're going to see what we agree on, and more importantly, what we don't. And today's show is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. All right, I'm not going to lie to you. I was out picking up snacks today, and I had a bag of the in-shell in my hand, and I was really thinking about it, and I just couldn't do it. I ended up going with the no shells mini packs, and I got the 3 different flavor varieties in the mini packs. It's just so much easier. I love it because, like, at my desk, in the car, whatever, rip, go, boom, great snack, satisfying, packed with protein, has all 9 essential amino acids. It's great. I love it. So, but I did think about going shells today. I really did, but I didn't. I ended up going with no shells still because that's my jam. So, hey, I am who I am, right? Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Hey, if you're still with us, please subscribe to the show if you have not already. And if you have already subscribed, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please tell your friends. We need to get more people listening every single day here to the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. It's how we're going to grow and how we're going to, continue the wave. Robyn, you talked about things going in waves. It's interesting. Like, we're doing all this retrospective stuff, right? We're looking back. Andre Tourney, Bill, and Chris Armstrong, everybody's looking back and talking about it's been a year. And I remember getting on the plane and then the party in the plaza and, just going from there. But at some point, you look at the future. And one of Bill Armstrong's comments today was about, and I'll paraphrase because it was a longer answer than this, but basically said, yes, the playoffs are now our reality. Making the playoffs is our expectation. Making the playoffs is where we should be next year. And that, to me, is an exciting statement, number one. And number two, so they're not really going to make any big changes, right, from what we've seen so far. Certainly not behind the bench or in the front office. Everything continues as normal. So they're expecting this group to not only take the next step forward, but it's going to be a big step, and that to be a playoff team.
It's exciting to hear that, right? I mean, we've talked about how this team would be close to it this year, right? They kind of went along, kind of straddled the line between bubble to right outside to wherever and they've been getting better, right? I mean, you just take a look year over year. Again, comparing to the previous seasons with the Arizona Coyotes to where this team is this year. I mean, this team finished with just south of 90 points. Like, and any other scenario, and we're in a scenario where we're not talking about an extremely stacked like Central Division or Western Conference, really in general. That's like, I mean, that could barely be enough to get you into the playoffs, like, and in some other years, like, but this team's continuing to get better. The fact that this team that they want to go in, it's nice to hear. I think it's even nicer to know when there is now a owner in place who has pretty much been open about saying, yeah, we're going to spend the money. We're going to make sure that we have the money ready to be able to compete, to get the players that we need to compete.
Heading into next season, it's projected to be about 22 million in cap right now, ish. And that doesn't mean it's all going to be there, but it also doesn't mean you have to spend it all. So that's the other challenge, because I've seen, Robyn, owners hand a checkbook to a general manager and have them go out and spend it because they felt like, oh, I got to spend it. It's there. I was told I could spend it, but spend it poorly. And you get married to a bad contract or two, all of a sudden it's an albatross. And then when you want to make moves, you need to make moves. You think you want to have some flexibility and you suddenly don't have it because you have some anchors tied to you. That can really ruin a rebuilding process. So the pressure is on this summer for the Utah front office to make the right moves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just take a look at, any team that ended up creating an attempt at a NHL superpower in the last decade and see what ended up happening to them down the road, right? They ended up all of a sudden falling into cap hell. And I will use the biggest example in the Chicago Blackhawks. Take a look at what happened to them, right? They were such a strong team for such a long time, but then they were completely, married to really overspending on Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews and that core, because you know what? They wanted to keep him for such a long time, and it put them into cap hell late in the 2010s to the early 2020s. All of a sudden, now they're in a hole they can't dig out of.
Well, and they will have to dig out of it. It's funny you're talking about the Blackhawks. I was talking to my buddy, John Weideman, who's the radio voice of the Hawks. And I asked him his thoughts on the end of the season, and we were just talking about it a little bit. And he actually felt it was a pretty positive season for the Blackhawks because the kids that are there now relish the role of rebuilding. And they know that that's what they have to look forward to now. And I think the fan expectations have been reset. But let's make it clear. What Chicago did was take out a mortgage on 3 Stanley Cups. They got the 3 shiny Stanley Cups, and they paid for them over the duration of 12-year contracts.
Right.
But they paid for those 3 shiny cups, and they got them. Honestly, if Utah was ever in a position where by extending, which you can only give 8 years now, but by extending, let's say 2 superstar players who you knew could bring you a cup or 2, or in that case 3, I would do it. Even knowing, Robyn, that maybe the back half of that contract, the last 2 or 3 years, are going to be absolutely awful because of the drop-off in production. But if the first 4 years bring me 2 Stanley Cups, to me, that is worth it. I really think that's worth it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was an example and where it is worth it. If you want to give me an example where it's teams overspend and all of a sudden they went downhill, I got 2 in this decade alone, Tom.
I know. All right, where are you going? Give them to me.
The beginning in 2019 to 2020 San Jose Sharks, and then this year's Nashville Predators.
My goodness, Nashville this year. They even had me fooled.
These are teams that went all in. They decided, hey, we want to keep these players. We want to add these players. We want to make sure that our window is now. And then all of a sudden, that window went from wide open to shut.
Not even shut. Like, they were defenestrated. I mean, like, right through the glass of the window, the season tumbled to the street below. And on paper, they look great. Potential Vezina winning, certainly Vezina candidate goaltender, Norris Trophy defenseman leading the D, and veteran scorers who have a solid history of winning Stanley Cups and putting up big time numbers. And none of that worked out. So again, Robyn, to the point we made just a little bit ago, just because you have the checkbook, just because you can spend the money, doesn't mean it's going to work out.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what's going to be working in favor for the Utah Hockey Club is Bill Armstrong has learned to be frugal over the last few years. He has learned to kind of work with a tighter, a tighter budget from the previous years under Coyotes ownership, Alex Morello, to now the Utah ownership and Ryan Smith, who's willing to spend more money. This first year, he didn't want to just all of a sudden just go straight to the bank and take that, essentially take a blank check. He kind of wanted to work his way in. And now this year, now that dead contracts are out of the way, working on a little bit more and getting the guys that he once re-signed signed. Now he takes a look at the book and says, all right, what can I do? I think that puts Bill Armstrong in a really unique situation to make this team a competitive team next season and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, you think like he could have waived a lot of money at Brandon Montour and maybe changed his mind to come to Utah. Didn't. Showed, the restraint, or maybe even got turned down. We don't really know, but didn't come to Utah, and it turned out to be smart and wise that he wasn't here. So because now you've rebuilt your core in a slightly different direction, in a different image, but I think better. So that's just because you don't get everybody you chase doesn't mean it's a bad thing. And sometimes it is a good thing for you. So Robyn, I'll tell you what, you and I are going to talk a little bit about how we would build if we were given that checkbook and what we would do here. And we're going to ask everybody too to start throwing it in the comments. What makes a Stanley Cup champion? We're going to talk about that.
And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, and you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I just absolutely love how FanDuel makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, I absolutely love going player props. In an NBA game, I may choose like who's going to get however many 3-pointers in a single game. I add, is this player going to get steals or assists? We're going to get points. We're going to get whose player is going to get a double-double. What's going to be the total over-under? There's so many different things I can do. It just makes it really fun to kind of put everything together, to kind of really take those risks and be like, all right, let's see how much I can win off of a very low stakes bet. Puts the fun into putting all those same game parlays in there. Absolutely my favorite thing to do. Don't miss out on the action. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Okay, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño back here with you on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate you being a part of the show here. As Robyn, we've covered, I think, a lot of the media availability that went down on Monday. And I just kind of, listening to the talk, and as I mentioned, a lot of, everything was rosy. We're on track. We're on a path. We like where we're going. We improved. Here's some statistical evidence, which is exactly what you expect from this sort of situation. No boat rocking. Robyn, I got to ask you, and you can do it through the lens of the Utah Hockey Club or any other franchise you like. When you look at building a Stanley Cup champion, what are the important things for you to have?
That's a good question. Because I feel like anybody can kind of put together a different philosophy of what a team looks like. I will give a comparison saying, we've talked about what Utah is, right? They are a physical team. And sure, I am all about the physicality. I really think there's an important aspect to that, Tom. But this era, you saw ads and other things referring to it as the Gen Z era of hockey. It is literally speed, style, skill. I'm looking to try to get some youth in there. Obviously, I don't want to go too young because it's we've seen where that can take you, but. I want to try to find the perfect balance between those two. Get the youth in there who can add the speed and style, but veterans who can add the level of experience. I do really think having a veteran presence is going to help coach these kids through some tough times, because poise you can't is just something you had to learn. You have to just go through. You have to understand what that's like, and if you have no one that's been there before, all of a sudden, how are you going to coach through that?
How are you going to react when you step in the spotlight? And you won't know till you step in the spotlight. You can think you know, but until you're in that moment, well, we'll find out. So I agree with you on that. I to me personally, I'm a defense wins championships kind of person.
Right.
I think you can get by without a 1A, 1B, and that's a change in my thinking in probably the last couple of years. I always thought you really did need a 1A, 1B in net. I don't think you do if you have a good 1, and your D is solid, like physical and solid.
Yeah.
And you have at least a good, reliable top 4. 5, 6 defensemen won't make or break you, but they can be what puts you over the top. But the other thing that's super important to me, Robyn, when I'm building a team is I want good centers. I know the wings score the goals. I know that. But I think if you have good to great centers in your top 6, and then you have a really better than league average third line center, you're going to be a really hard team to beat.
Exactly. It's interesting too, because there has been a talk, I can kind of bring Utah back into the loop about this, is if Utah this offseason, for example, can go out and try to chase a true 1C, because so many people take a look at some of the players on this team and is there a true a true 1C? There have been arguments, and I'm not saying I agree with all those, but there have been arguments saying not necessarily you can make it a 1C, but we want someone who can be there right now.
Yeah. And a lot of players are listed as center who end up playing the wing. Don't forget that. And that's the thing. I think a lot of players come up as centers and they don't stay there.
And let's remember this too. Those that are what we've seen sometimes is we have centers who act literally as just like a powerful forward. But let's also remember, Tom, they are also essentially your third D. I mean, you talk about how defense wins championships. Having in your 4 centers you have in your starting lineup, having at the very least one, maybe even a second, really strong two-way center will really go a long way in making sure that the load is not unbearable on that blue line.
It really makes a difference. It does. And that's why I think it's so important to have that guy who can play a two-way game, who's an excellent skater, can win you some important face-offs, but is just smart all 200 feet of the ice.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
And that's why that's why I said, where I think the balance comes into place. Because while as you say, we do need those two-way centers, but also I want a guy who's in there who kind of understands that speed style, who can match well with his wingers, right? Because those wingers they're the ones that really are about the speed and style. But you want one who can really jump up to kind of set up their plays and be able to understand where they go. Is there a player that's going to go out and attempt a Michigan goal? I'm not saying we're going to do it on every single night, but you have to understand. I think there has to be a center who understands that level of those kinds of players.
No, I would absolutely agree with that. This is leading me into questions that we don't have time in this episode for, Robyn, but it's nice because we have time to stretch our legs here over the summer and talk about things like, does Utah need to add a top 6 scorer? Do they need another center, or do they need a wing, or do they need something else entirely that we haven't talked about? What do they need? And we're going to talk about that at all 3 positions. Certainly, I think we discussed earlier how the goaltending may be open now. And of course, special teams. You have to consider special teams. So there's a lot of topics for us to get into. But all right, Robyn, just leave us your 1-minute elevator pitch on your team here for a Stanley Cup contender or a champion. A Stanley Cup champion. What makes a Stanley Cup champion?
I mean, I'm just going to go right back to it and saying that, in this era, you take a look at what what makes some of the best players out there with the speed and the style of shooting. You get there, you attack quick. I mean, if you're able to get the higher scorer, at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Score one more goal than the other guys. That makes you a champion. There is a lot more scoring off the rush than there used to be. That's for sure. It's interesting how the game kind of ebbs and flows. In the 80s, it was a lot about the rush. And then it was in the 90s about clogging up the rush and not allowing it. And that was dump and chase. And all things are cyclical. They come around. So, I mean, you can see the game, everything old is new again. So for me, I think if you got a good defensive core, they stand up at the blue line, they force guys wide, they take away that time and space. That's huge for me because your goalie makes a lot more saves from the wings if you're not getting pucks across or pucks in to the front of the net. And again, I mean, I like to lean on other teams, especially in the playoffs. In the regular season, it can make for a long and grindy kind of year. I don't think you can play that way for 82 games. But once you get into the playoffs, if you're a heavy team and you play with weight, I think that is what makes a Stanley Cup champion, because you can grind other teams to bits.
Did make me think of a potential good conversation for the future, Tom, and this is more on the offensive side of things, but the importance of a strong breakout or a strong forecheck.
Okay. I like it. All things we can get into. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the show today. We invite everybody to put your comments down if you're on the YouTube side. While you're at it, give us a thumbs up as well and like the show. Helps us with the algorithm, helps you with the algorithm as well. We both get great hockey content because of it. And also, Robyn, if folks want to reach out on social media, where can they find us?
On social media, you can find us at LO_NHL Utah. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Locked On Utah Hockey. I'm at Robyn_Leaño, primarily on X/Twitter. And on Robyn Ice Time for Blue Sky.
I am at Tom Talks on Blue Sky. Still hanging on the Twitter side at Callahan on air. I guess I'll be there for the rest of the playoff run for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we can definitely talk some puck over there if you want to do that. So thanks for joining us, everybody. And again, looking forward to the next episode. Hey, if you have any suggestion for future episodes or topics you want us to cover, you can also reach out to us with those. So for Robyn, I'm Tom. Thanks for being a part of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.